people are the new terrorists. You notice Homeland's expanding, and they got all these TV shows coming out how it's conservatives and libertarians are the new bad guys. Well, let's not mince words. They say white people are bad. So, I mean, it's just inherently bad to be a white person. Syrian rebels add explosive expertise to guerrilla tactics. And that's Al-Qaeda. It's all coming up. Stay with us. All right, my friends, we have a guest joining us, author of Eco-Tyranny. He's really drilled into their statements, their activities. New York Times bestseller. He wrote Climategate, and his new book is Eco-Tyranny. Brian Sussman is going to be joining us. We sell this book at InfoWarsShop.com. I should add, discounted with a free citizen rule book with every order. But that's a side issue. He is coming up, the balance of this hour. We will open the phones up to talk about Eco-Tyranny, because that's what they are. And they're brainwashing your kids, you name it. But we will continue with the huge buildup worldwide for collapse and war, which is now becoming more and more of a certainty. It's not a certainty yet, but we are certainly in interesting times, to say the least. Wall Street Journal, I'm going to cover this more again in the third hour. Economy adds 163,000 jobs. Okay, now remember, this is all with cooked numbers. And that's what's so frustrating about all this. They've admitted for over a decade, they always had slightly cooked, but now if you're off the jobless rolls, you've given up, you're living with your parents, or you're on the streets, which is millions of people that are living with family and stuff and just don't have a job or pick up cans or do stuff on the black market. If you take them out, we are in a total depression. And by the way, they have articles today even admitting that. But it's like still Obama and Romney will debate these fake numbers as if, well, 6.3% is better than what 9.3 when I got in. And it's just all made up. Economy adds 163,000 jobs. I listen to local talk radio, and they're all debating these numbers. And again, I try to call in, and they go, no, we don't want to have you on, even when I don't even say who I am. I'm like, yes, I'd like to announce that when people are off the rolls, that they're not counting anymore. So unemployment's closer to about 20%. And I can give you top economists, John Williams and others of Shadow Stats. No, thank you. We're not looking for that right now, call-wise. And I understand screening calls makes the show sound better sometimes. You get folks that are really clear and focused, but they always just kind of fit into whatever the fake debate is. It's so canned and frustrating. Economy, again, adds that. Wall Street Journal, 195,000 fewer American jobs in July, 150,000 dropped out of labor force. That's an accurate report out of CNS News, so they break down the fact that it's really a lot less. U.S. unemployment rate, again, it rises to 8.3%. Jobs up, though. That's AP, Reuters, job growth steps up, jobless rate rises 8.3%. So all the same headlines. Reuters, job growth steps up, but jobless rate, same thing. And then I have an article here. Real unemployment rate shows far more jobless, and that's CNBC. I expect CNS News to tell the truth, but CNBC, blind hog found an acorn. Broken clocks are right twice a day. While the national unemployment rate paints a grim picture, a look at individual states and their so-called real jobless rate becomes even more troubling. And it goes on to break down the real number, 22.1% in Nevada, California 20.3%. It's more like 30% 2 years ago. Even CBS 60 Minutes did that. Rhode Island 18.3%. And it just goes over the fact that a lot of states have a lot higher. Yeah, but that doesn't even count people that are off the rolls. It only counts unemployment rolls against those that have jobs. Facebook stock crash hoses California tax revenue. And, of course, they invested a bunch of the pension funds in that, too. So now that it's the state of California, which apparently overestimated how much tax revenue it was going to collect from Facebook employees after the IPO. So you got the Facebook employees getting ripped off as well. Facebook growth clouded with dubious accounts. Facebook stock near half off price point. Boy, they sure ripped you off, didn't they, America, and the rest of the world? It's just funny. I mean, I told you that. I told you. He says he's going to rip you off. I mean, he'd rather rip you off and have the whole company fall apart, because wrecking things is what these people do. They hate anybody having anything. They want to destroy everything. Again, I want to thank all of you out there, lovers of liberty worldwide, for joining us on this Friday transmission. It is the 3rd day of August 2012. On this Friday edition, we'll be back this Sunday live, 4 to 6 p.m. Central Time as well, 5 to 7 Eastern, 2 to 4 Pacific, 3 to 5 Mountain. And we have a really big broadcast lined up for you today. Coming up here in just a few minutes, we're going to get the author of Eco-Tyranny, Brian Sussman, on to look at his book on ClimateGate and what happened there, and where the #1 threat to liberty is going worldwide. The banker globalist takeover arm uses environmentalism to push all their taxes and their monopoly system of picking winners and losers. This is really their magic little key to bringing in socialism and globalism. That's what Richard N. Haas, the head of the CFR, wrote in '93 for the Club of Rome. You can look this up. He wrote a whole article, and he said, we're going to use a pincer attack, the threat of terrorism to get the right wing to give their rights up, and the environmental situation to take rights with the left. And with those two things, we're going to get everybody. And so that is the basic program there. Then coming up in the next hour, open phones. We'll take some calls later in this hour. We're going to get into the deteriorating situation. Well, you know, it's been close to war a lot. Generals have said no and resigned. Joint Chiefs have resigned. But Dempsey says he's ready to attack Iran with Israel, basically. Iran's putting out its rhetoric about, blowing up the Zionist state and all this stuff. Got those quotes out of Ahmadinejad. The globalists are using jihadi, al-Qaeda groups to attack Libya and bring it down, and now Syria. I mean, there's wars going on all over the place, proxy wars. But Russia is threatening all sorts of stuff. We have Paul Watson's report from yesterday. In fact, guys, will you re-pull that for me with the Pravda and other Russian Novostat reporting they're putting nukes back in Cuba? I don't know if that's true, but that's big news. There's Russian submarines again off the U.S. coast. They've had their Big Bear aircraft and others with nukes flying into U.S. airspace. That hadn't happened in decades. A lot of craziness going on. We're going to be discussing, including the economy and what's happening there, coming up in the next hour. But we are joined here with, I guess, his maiden visit with us, or has he been on before? I can't remember. We've had so many great guests. We sell this book, by the way. It's WorldNet Daily Books. Very, very well done, because, I like to think of myself as an expert on this stuff, but I did read the book a few weeks ago, and it reminded me of so much I'd forgotten, but also learned a lot in here about how they operate. But it is eco-tyranny. That's what it is, and the leaders of it know it's tyranny. It's not about saving the environment. It's about power grabbing. And they want a post-industrial world. He's got the quotes in here, how they want to shut everything down, where only they can operate, just like Obama shutting down hundreds of power plants, power outages everywhere, as we knew would happen. But General Electric got a waiver 2 years ago, and other insiders do. So now they make more money selling more power at higher prices. I mean, it's pure gangsterism, and it's a book everybody should get at InfoWarsShop.com. Our bookstores everywhere. Eco-Tyranny provides a thought-provoking analysis of the origins of the modern-day sustainable movement. Senator James Inhofe, the best champion in the Senate fighting these tyrants, author of The Greatest Hoax. And again, we're carrying both The Greatest Hoax and Eco-Tyranny at InfoWarsShop.com, because both of his books are just so powerful. And he joins us now because, this is one of the biggest threats out there. And they don't care they got caught engaging in fraud. They don't care they got caught saying polar bears couldn't swim. George Soros' White House group, openly run by the former White House transition chief, their Think Progress that says alternative media should be shut down and that my funding should be shut down. Wherever that comes from, it comes from sponsors. Kind of crazy. But side issue, they are now in Oklahoma saying, oh my gosh, look, a photo of melted streetlights. But the article out of Oklahoma that they didn't note over the George Soros outfit was that they were next to a building fire. That's why the glass melted. So, this is a daily, folks, they say polar bears can't swim. They're the greatest land swimming animal. They've been recorded swimming over 200 miles. Their numbers are up 5-fold, the government admits, since the 50s. They're everywhere. They're basically giant cockroaches, invading areas that aren't even frozen now, stealing food and breaking into things. I like polar bears. The point is, it's a joke how many of them there are. And again, that's how dumb they think you are. Now Al Gore's putting out stuff showing penguins on a piece of ice in Antarctica, claiming they can't swim, or implying that. So the reason we've got our guest with us for the rest of the hour is to go back. I wanted to go back and look at, remind people what happened 3 years ago at Copenhagen. And then now, since then, they've gone more underground. But a lot of times when they go underground, they come back even more vicious. Just like, this is a battle call by Joel Klein in the latest Time magazine, the August 6th issue. He says how guns won, why Americans have turned against gun control. But then the whole thing is, oh, you don't need an assault weapon for hunting, as if the Second Amendment's for hunting. And, we're going to have new reasonable ways. And all the Republican leadership down the line, from Michael Savage to Bill Kristol, Rupert Murdoch, says it's time to ban semi-auto. So you got the whole establishment circling the wagons because they know there's a libertarian, constitutionalist, real conservative revolution that is going to overthrow the entire corrupt system. Now, I'm done ranting. I'm not going to go over our whole guest here, but 20 years, he was Bay Area's top television meteorologist and science reporter. That's why he's such an expert to speak on this. His accolades include nearly 24 state and regional awards for best weathercaster, from the Associated Press, Radio TV Director Association, and a handful of Emmys, only a handful, and an award of merit from the National Education Association. He's been recognized by the state of California for assisting in the adoption of foster children through the organization Brian's Kids. 400 foster children were placed in permanent families. From 89 to 2001. He's hosted a 2-hour evening talk radio show. In 2009, his program became the highest rated on the station. Sussman was promoted to headline the KSFO morning show. I'm not going to read anymore. We got him here because he's an author and a meteorologist. Sir, good to have you join us. You got the floor. Tell us the state of the eco-fascist and give us a weather report on the enemy formations.
Alex, the first thing I have to say is this is my maiden voyage on your program, and I feel as if we're brothers from different mothers because we both became enlightened by the same book, None Dare Call It Conspiracy. That's where the light went off for me in the early 80s. And quite frankly, that's why I ended up leaving network television, because the newscasts were obviously so biased and so controlled and so anti-liberty that I had to get out. So again, sir, it's a pleasure to be with you. Well,
it's a pleasure to have you. And I'm sorry I ran it for 5 minutes while you were on hold, but we got you on Skype a bit late. Break down from your deep research who the environmental movement is, what their goal is, and again, the current state of their criminal takeover.
And it is a criminal takeover. There's no question about this. And this has been in the mix for a long time, Alex. When I wrote my book, ClimateGate, I was just trying to unfold the global warming scam in one easy-to-read book where people could get all the information they wanted. But when I was concluding ClimateGate, I realized, wait a second, it's not just global warming that's a scam. It's the entire environmental movement. So I started doing my research just as you would do, and I started reading lots of stuff. And I'm a guy, I like to read Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels because I want to know where the enemy is coming from. I came across something that Marx and Engels wrote in 1883. Now, as you know, your listeners know, your viewers know, these guys hated capitalism. They hated free markets. They hated private property rights. They came up with a scenario that capitalism is polluting the atmosphere, and that pollution could actually change the weather and change the climate and bring about another ice age, which would kill all human species. They proposed this in 1883. They thought if we can scare the hell out of them with weather, then we can get them onto our side, move them from capitalism, bring them over to socialism. And Alex, the left hasn't left this scare tactic ever since. It's not about clean air and clean water. The environmental movement is absolutely about control and changing the system, as Van Jones once said, changing the system from free markets and capitalism to socialism and tyranny.
Continue.
Well, you really have to take it from Karl Marx, who wrote all about this, to Vladimir Lenin, who first invoked all of this upon people. Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels wrote a lot about the environment. They believed that no one had a right to own